Welcome back, and joining me for a look at the equity scene is Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore. Thank you so much for your time, Viv. It's quite an interesting trading day today. The broader all shares seeming to not be really finding any concrete direction. But the resources are flying, especially the gold counters. At the moment, you have Harmony up 7%, Anglo Gold 6%. What's got them flying so much?
Well, the gold price has recovered quite nicely from recent lows. I mean, just a couple of days ago, it was touching 25.50, and now it's closer to 2,700. So, there's a nice little recovery happening in the last few days. And I think that's going to helping, a lot of the gold companies. So if you look at the gold, like you said, Harmony, Gold Fields, DRD, there's Sabadia, also partly gold as well. Also all up, quite nicely today.
That's actually very, very interesting. And that gold sector has been quite a fascinating one to watch as well. What I'm also noticing is that Investec actually is the biggest loser at the moment, down more than 4%, almost 5%. And quite interesting considering the fact that they released results yesterday. Does it maybe have anything to do with the numbers and how investors are digesting the numbers at this point?
Yeah, partly, but also remember, if you look at Investec over the last, I'd say, month or so, even with today's fall, it's pretty much flat. So the market hasn't really, pulled back too far. Maybe the expectations were a little higher around the company. And there was some minor concerns there around, for instance, credit losses.
Yes.
We are seeing issues with this country in terms of the economic growth. The Saab talked about, for the next couple of years, their growth predictions were not great. They were positive, but not great.
All right.
And I do think we have to see the underlying economy improve to help some of these companies, like especially the banks, retailers, do well, because they're all geared to place on the GDP of the country.
Well, I mean, talking about credit losses, those are, I guess, due to be better in the lower interest rate environment. Let's go into Saab because they cut interest rates again yesterday in this current cutting cycle. And I'm wondering what you made of the unanimous decision to cut interest rates by 25 basis points instead of 50 basis points, and really just the tone that the governor came with yesterday.
Well, I mean, I think the 50 basis point cut was unlikely. The Saab knows not to try and surprise the market, especially with cuts. The reason being is quite simple. The rand is weak versus, volatile versus, let me say, the developing markets. And if you surprise those markets, the international investors, they will make the rand weaker, and that's going to cause inflation to be a problem again. We also like to see inflation return to a certain extent in the next couple of months because, fuel price increases coming through. Food probably going to tick up again. They were the main reasons we saw the inflation number, go down as low as it did. But look, I have to say, with our Reserve Bank, I can barely fault them in terms of the overall results of their actions. You look at places like Nigeria, you look at places like Egypt, etc., some of our competitors on the other continent, and look at the volatility in their currencies, places like Ghana, and look at that compared to the rand. The rand looks like almost as a stable currency, like a hard currency compared to them, and that's down basically to our Reserve Bank.
Viv, just talking about interest rates and obviously the impact on the consumer-facing sectors. Southern Sun, I noticed an announcement today that PSG Asset Management increased its stake in the Southern Sun, where it now holds 5.22%. And this announcement comes the day after Southern Sun released its results. That investor appetite expected?
I mean, look at the share price is up 80-something% in the last year. Wow. It's not just recovered to where it was pre-pandemic; it's beyond that at the moment. So it's showing that it's basically, the market's liking some of the restructuring it's done, some of the ways it's basically gone, post-pandemic in terms of improvements and so on. So yeah, this company has done really well in the last few years. Operationally, it's coming back quite nicely, and I do think that we are looking at SA Inc. looking a bit more positive. We will expect, of course, Southern Sun to do well as well.
All right. Viv, also, before we get to your stock pick, we have to talk about NVIDIA. We did have the company beating earnings estimates there, but it looked like investors were actually quite unsure of where to really place the direction of the stock yesterday. What exactly were the market's concerns about NVIDIA, and are they warranted or not at this point?
Well, I mean, firstly, you got to say that Jensen Huang deserves to be a lot more famous than Steve Jobs. He's done, what he's produced is bigger in terms of like the impact on the market. Nvidia is not the biggest company in the world. It's basically, he's like the founder, CEO running this thing for start, and was once a busboy, as he likes to always say. But yeah, a very great company. The results are incredible. I mean, we're talking 30 plus billion in terms of revenue, going up to 37 billion in the next quarter or this current quarter. Growth rates that are 70% year on year. When you're making this kind of tens of billions of dollars per quarter in revenue, unheard of in terms of this kind of particular company. I do think the market was maybe overdoing some of the expectations, and therefore that's where you saw the volatility come through. But if you look at where the company is right now, the share price, and versus where it was just before the announcement came out, it's pretty much either there or slightly above it, actually. So yes, there was a bit of like, there was I think a reactionary 5% fall immediately thereafter. But since then, the market's basically calmed down, and the share price was actually up yesterday, and showing that the market's not too concerned about any kind of slight worries about the company. Demand still significantly races supply at the moment with the company.
All right. Well, Viv, let us get to your stock pick. What are you hanging your hat on today?
The company we get is ASML. It's a European maker of basically the machines that you use to make computer chips. They've had a bit of a pullback this year. I mean, we're down from their highs back in July about, say, 33%. I think if you had to think that NVIDIA is going to be a player in the future, to think that these AI companies are going to be great going into the future, ASML has to be something to buy because they have a virtual monopoly on these machines, and these machines are bit lumpy, and we talk about tens of billions of dollars to get a system in place. And so one customer having a problem like Samsung does cause the market to kind of get jittery. But if you think NVIDIA is worth its money, then ASML should be a buyer at this particular level.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and giving us insight on what has moved investors' money today and this week. Viv, that was Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore.